We gotta find somebody who has like a really lovely grandmother. And just have her hand knit us.
Oh, look, my mum
vaults,
crochets shit all the time.
Have your mum crochet a single vault game?
All right, I'll talk to her.
We can photocopy it and make a bunch of them.
Yep.
That you know what, Connor? That's exactly how photocopiers work.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, welcome back to From the Vault. I am Dylan.
And I am Trent. Hello, everyone.
And we have Connor behind the
Howdy ho,
scenes.
everybody.
Yes, he's our little
He's a little guy.
computer wench.
Don't call him that.
Okay.
I prefer production goblin.
Thank you.
That's fair. We're back. We had a bit of a break because we were trying to get something together before PAX. We just missed the window because I went down to PAX last weekend.
Oh my god.
Yes, went all the way down to Melbourne. For those that know where Vault is, it's in Brisbane, which is
And Clayfield.
and Clayfield, yes. But in the Brisbane city area. And it's a long way to Melbourne. But got back. We're here to record,
We are.
talk some stuff about stores.
I did not go to PAX for reference. I was holding down the fort here in Brisbane, so I think you'll be leading most of the conversation about PAX. But
Yeah.
that's good. I was thinking about this recently. I was leading a lot of the conversation. I think about the Warhammer reveals.
Yeah.
So I want to see.
Cool. All right. Well, let's talk about PAX then.
Absolutely.
So
How did PAX go, Dylan?
how did PAX go? PAX was all right. There's parts of it that could have been better. The panels were kind of like a hit and miss. Some of the panels were very interesting, particularly one that they gave tax advice to streamers that basically said if you earn less than $50,000, don't report it to the tax office.
That sounds dangerous.
Which is a dangerous piece of advice to give.
But legally not financial advice.
Legally not financial advice because there's no legal ramifications for tax advice.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, different.
Interesting.
But like a couple of panels I went to, they were great. I went to the Sea Shanties on Saturday night, and they raised like 11 grand in the space of an hour and a half.
Amazing.
And it was just a bunch of people on stage getting pissed, drinking sea shanties. Sorry, drinking cucumber water.
Yeah.
The tabletop zone was great as always. Plenty of games to hire out from the library. There was a lot of demos, a lot of game demos this year.
I feel like that's kind of almost what you're going to PAX for.
Yeah, you go to PAX for the experiences, right? So the indie zones inside the expo hall as well for video games, awesome. Finally, Broken Roads is coming out. It's a game I've been looking at since I think the 2018 PAX.
Oh my god.
I don't know if you don't know what Broken Roads is. It's essentially if you've played original Fallout, like the old
Fallout,
Interplay
yeah.
Fallout,
The isometric Fallout.
the isometric, yeah.
That was
it's-
before it was called Obsidian.
Yeah. Broken Roads is like an Australian developer that essentially like has made this kind of Fallout-like game that's in a post-apocalyptic Australia, and it has a morality system. A philosophy system is basically how you level up. So if you take actions that are like humanist, then you'll start moving down the humanist perk tree. Or if you're like a socialist or communist or all these other kind of elements, like your abilities and perks modify based on how your character's philosophy moves throughout the game, based on your decisions.
My pacifist communist run. This looks really good. I mean, those who know me know I love my classic games, big Diablo 2 fan. I have sunk hundreds of hours into Fallout 2. I played a lot of Fallout 2, played a little bit of Fallout Tactics. I've also played a lot of Fallout 1, but it wasn't like Fallout 2 for me. Like, I think Fallout 2 is possibly...
Really?
Yeah, I think it's the best one.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Fallout 1's really good. I don't want to put down Fallout 1 at all, but I think Fallout 2 for me was
I
just
found Fallout 2 to be like a whole nother level of difficulty above Fallout 1.
I think Fallout 2 is so difficult that if you don't build the correct character out the gate, you can't
It's
finish
game
the
over,
game.
yeah.
It's game over. I think it's a reflection of his time, definitely. But we're not talking about that too much. I think Fallout 2 is really good. I played a lot of hours of it. And I think you have to commit hundreds of hours to even enjoy that game at all, which is a whole different point. This looks really good.
It looks awesome. I've been
play this.
looking at the indie zone since like 2018, 2019 for PAX at the indie area, and it's finally coming out this year. So I know it's not tabletop, but this game, it drew me in, and I love it.
This game looks very RPG game tabletop.
Yeah.
This is the best thing about these kind of games. I also noticed that the Steam page did have a PAX banner on
Yes.
it, so they're very proud of showing it off a PAX.
Yes,
too, which is really exciting.
Steam actually does like a full PAX indie Steam page as well, so you can go check out all the cool stuff. There's some really cool games. There was a point-and-click game called Drifter. That's a bit like a storytelling, narrative-based game.
That's cool. I saw some pigeon game.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just following. I like kind of lived
It's like-
vicariously through people posting about
yeah,
it.
yeah.
so-
It was like it's like Pigeon Mafia or something like
something
that.
Yeah, that looked really funny.
Yeah, there's some really cool games coming out of Australia. There was also like a Kiwi section as well, so there's a couple of New Zealand designers,
That's cool.
independent stuff.
It's like pigeons. Anyway, doesn't matter.
There's
Yeah, the
the
Godfeather.
Godfeather, yeah.
The Godfeather Pigeon Mafia. I see exactly where you got
Yeah.
that from. So,
Um,
I saw this game. I don't think this is very board game related at all, but it also looks very cute and very
Yeah,
exciting.
it's
It
great.
reminds me of Hoppy Road. Was it called Hoppy Road?
yeah.
Not Flappy Bird, but like I played a lot of that other game. There's like the Frogger game. Anyway, it's like Frogger. Anyway,
It's like a shmup, but it's a shmup bomber.
yeah, it looks cool.
Yeah,
I
it's
like it.
cool. There's some
Anyways.
really cool stuff. I always love I live for the indie section.
stuff is what you want, especially if you're talking about like you mentioned earlier, landed on the whole Kiwi developers. Not for this game necessarily, but there was a whole Kiwi developer thing. That seems really cool.
Yeah.
too. So, you got flocked.
And there's what is there? Microsoft and Sony weren't in the main hall this year.
What?
The
Interesting.
only one of the big three was Nintendo.
Good.
And Nintendo booth.
Really?
I mean,
What they show off?
They showed off press builds of Super Mario Worlds, the new one.
Is that the one where he turns into an elephant? What's that game? That's coming out soon.
I don't know. if
New
it's-
Mario game. He turns into an
I
elephant.
think it is. It's
Yeah, there's Elephant Mario. I can't remember what the game's
Um,
called, but it's like Super Mario something.
They also showed off the DLC for Scarlet Violet
That's
as well,
well.
and the new Detective Pikachu returns.
Ooh, that's exciting. Can I say, like, I know we're not really, we're kind of off track a little bit, just talk about like video games now, but like, man, Scarlet Violet sucked. I'm
Yeah,
gonna say
it's
it now.
alright, but, yeah,
No,
it
it's
wasn't
like
great.
sucked. Yeah, here we go.
I actually preferred Sword and
Super
Shield.
Mario Brothers Wonder. Wonder.
That must be it, yeah.
That's good. This game looks really good. So, I mean, obviously, it's just another Super Mario Brothers game that's like 2D. And it's just, I think it's good.
Yeah. I just don't know how much of this we can show because we know how notorious Nintendo is.
we can show 9.59 seconds.
Awesome.
But 9 minutes and 59 seconds. No. That's not math at all, Trent.
That's not math at all.
9 seconds is how much
We
we
showed
can
9
show.
seconds.
We showed 9 seconds.
I'll make sure I put that in the edit.
My brain went like to 10 minutes and I was like, there's no chance.
There's some cool stuff in the tabletop zone, which again takes up half the convention center as well down in Melbourne.
Which is why we love it so much.
Big tabletop tournament area now. Like it was probably like 10% bigger than last year, so they had like a whole new row of tables.
What games are being played?
Seven Wonders, the usual Seven Wonders, Catan, Carcassonne, Ticket to Ride.
I love playing a Carcassonne tournament. That sounds fun.
Yeah,
I love
It's
Carcassonne.
good. I love playing Speed Carcassonne, where you have like 3 seconds from picking up the tile to place it, and that's it.
Oh, I've never played Speed Carcassonne. I'm going to do that now.
Yeah, we'll play a game. It's good.
A big fan of Ticket. The resident train guy at Vault.
Yeah, I was going to say, I was like, wow, Ticket to Ride and Connor? That's crazy. I could not have known.
Crazy. You know, there's a legacy game coming out for Ticket to Ride, right?
Oh my god.
Yeah, campaign-based train map making. Let's go.
That's very exciting.
I think I need to pick up a copy and just invite Connor over.
And then you also mentioned as well, I think like before we started recording, you were talking about there was they were showing up like drafting and such as well for Magic. There was like Magic.
Yes, Magic was back with an activation. Magic has not been at probably a convention in Australia that isn't like a GP or Pro Tour or whatever, but it hasn't been at a convention since I think 2018 or
as in like
2017
as like a non-learn to play environment, right?
in any presence that isn't like any organized presence.
Really? Well,
yeah, they just kind of like killed it.
Well, hang on, because like let me just jump in, right? Because I was at Supernova at the Gold Coast this year, I think it was.
Yep.
And there was a Magic the Gathering like area with like 6 tables worth of people playing. But it was a learn to play with like welcome decks for free, and there were like 2 or 3 wizard
so
stuff.
they've only started doing that. They've only started picking that back up again this year.
So yeah, it would have been just from then. So this PAX isn't the first time it's shown up, but as in like it's starting back up again.
It's starting back up again. They had a
PAX
big
had that
area.
example.
I managed to get some games in with the Hasbro crew as well, which I had some
I saw
real
that.
fun playing some Commander with them, meeting some new contacts in there. They had demos of all new games as well floating around from our suppliers. So they had like Apiary, the new Stone Mayor game.
Oh yeah, yep. That was really good.
There's a Sky Team, which is a co-op plane game where you work together to land planes at an airport.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, it's 2-player co-op, and if you get 2 copies, you can play like a team v team kind of game.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, really good to see Magic there again. The area was very light on this year. Like every now and then they probably have like one minis tournament or whatever. But this year there was like very little representation. There was like a small area of about, I think like 12 or 16 tables that were just set up for, there was like 2 BattleTech, there's like 2 Combat Patrol, 40k Combat Patrol learner plays. And then it was just like one OPR, so one page rules, sorry for anyone who doesn't know. Really weird, esoteric, niche, like futuristic sci-fi ones that I do not even remember the name.
Stargrave.
Yeah, who knows? Napoleonic, like naval battles, like really, really ultra niche stuff.
Yeah.
There's a couple of Gaslands tables actually. Gaslands had a bit of a rep in there too. I was pretty cool to see that. So
I went and visited as a family recently in rural New South Wales. So in a place called Yungai Rail, which is like north of Port Macquarie.
Yep.
So for anyone who knows where Port Macquarie is, if you're one of the 3 people, and I visited like a little like souvenir shop, or not souvenir, sorry, an antique shop, and I picked up some small like old, really like 80s Hot Wheels.
Those old die-cast ones.
Yeah, little die-cast Hot Wheels. And I got some of those. So thanks for that, Connor. So it was in a Yungai Rail, and it was in Maxville, which is quite close to that I went to this little shop, and so I got some because I really want to try Gaslands myself. I think it's a cool system.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of those games I'm kind of looking at that I really would want to try.
Yeah,
just gotta find the time for it.
Exactly. It's I think Aeronautica was I've never been like I've never been really into like the kind of vehicular manslaughter combat kind of games. It's not just dogfighting. It's really just like forced movement, kind of a lot of 2-layer interactive gameplay that I kind of go, I don't know if this is for me. But after playing Aeronautica and going, oh, actually kind of jive with this, that's made me really want to try out Gasland. So we're looking at the rule set for that. And I got going back a step as well. You stopped on OPR, so that's 1-page rules for those at home. So there's Grimdark Future and also 1-page rules fantasy. Those are great systems. So I'm glad to see that there was some representation there, because I think
it was
more people getting into 1-page rules. Because by the way, all those rules are free.
Yeah.
So that's great to see, and they are fairly minis agnostic, even though on the nose, obviously, like bring your Warhammer models, but it is miniatures agnostic. They also have their own armies and their own models you can print as well, and even buy from My Mini Factories as well, like the actual resin prints themselves. You don't have to have a $400 machine to do it, which is kind of like a bar. And I think those games are great. So I play a lot of Grimdark Future at the moment. I've been playing a lot of it. Even Jason and myself are organizing a game very soon to play some, because it's good. So I'm glad to see it.
It's the big problem was it wasn't really like supply supported, which obviously makes sense because they're very niche games, and they're very like, I think Battletech is the only game out of that, apart from Warhammer, that has a supplier in Australia.
Well, of course, like 1-page rules, good example of something that's actually almost like fleecing from a different
IP,
right?
I
So
think it's very hard. And a lot of the old Napoleonic stuff is like, it's just PDFs online now, or it's like through very niche like game creators. So the whole mini section there was essentially run by like some minis groups, community groups, which is cool and all. I felt like it didn't really provide the miniatures experience that a lot of people who, if they were seeking out minis there, would really get from it.
Yeah, I don't think these games necessarily benefit from having all of them included in the same space, because it's deceptive to call it homogenous, because it's not. These are all very different experiences.
Very different games with very different rule sets.
Exactly. That are like, just because you're bringing miniatures to this game doesn't mean they're the same at all.
Yeah.
Right? So it's even in the context of a 1-page rules where it is the same minis, totally different games. So yeah, I find that very interesting. Did you see, this is just a random game in the mini section. Did you see a game called Ravaged Star at all? Anywhere? Just think about Ravaged Star. Did you see that anywhere? It's a game.
I don't know.
It's developed by the guys over at Mini Wargaming.
Yep.
And they've been projecting it all over the world, and it just started to its worldwide shipping. So I'm almost surprised to not see any representation of Ravaged Star.
I don't think it was there.
This is Ravaged Star, by the way, which has just really high quality miniatures. Great game. Look at it at home if you like, lads. But didn't see any of this?
No.
No
Ravaged Star. There was this weird one. I think it was called Grunts, like GRUNTZ.
Like Halo Grunts.
Yeah, I don't know. It was it was like, when I was looking at the guys, like, as I was walking past and I saw the guys like rule book, I was like, it's like 10-point font with just walls of text. I'm like,
I won't lie, definitely 1-page rules does have that. I know it's only like, it's literally like a page and then the back of the page, but it does have like this kind of wall of text dynamic where you
it's
just
one
go,
page,
like,
I swear, guys, but
I
it's
swear.
like 8-point font.
15mm. Okay, amazing.
Yeah, it's niche games. I think everyone will find their niche there and have some fun with it. Yeah, I think PAX could be served by having a bit more of like a dedicated, I guess, organized miniatures play. Which I mean, who knows? Someone may be working on something. Who knows?
I don't know anything about that.
Crazy.
I don't know, man.
What else is there? Asmodee was there because we have an Asmodee in Australia now.
Yep.
So they were showing off a lot of games. And the really cool thing they showed off was actually Star Wars Unlimited.
Oh yes, you were telling me all about this.
So I got my hands on it. I have thoughts. I definitely do have thoughts, which I think I will save for when we have a chat about Star Wars Unlimited.
We will, and also in the description, you'll see the blog post that Dylan made.
Yes.
Dylan made a big blog about this and his opinions on the game. It's not a huge blog; it's easy to get through. But we'll put it in the description.
Look,
of the video.
yeah. We'll put it down below.
Yeah, put it down below.
We'll chat
if you
about
want
it
to
later.
see it, and we'll come back to it.
We'll come back to it.
But let's translate that. I got a better idea. Let's translate that into what card game were you expecting to see there? You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
And that you didn't see there that I thought was really interesting.
Oh, yeah, absolutely Lorcana.
Absolutely Lorcana.
Yeah.
But you
actually, no, that's a lie. I saw Lorcana.
Exactly.
I did see Lorcana, and that's because my friend Ben at Netherworld took down his 2 decks.
The Ben from Netherworld took down his 2 decks. So Cassie, one of the boss owners here, got their hands on it and were able to play some, but you were a bit busy in a meeting, so you didn't get to play the game.
I didn't get to play it. I saw around it, and it's.
But this is the thing, right?
Look, I have thoughts. I have lots of thoughts about Lorcana.
We're going to get into this, right? We've actually finally hit the discussion for the day, which is going to be mostly about Lorcana. But I think that, so you for everyone at home, okay?
Yeah.
There was no Lorcana representation.
Absolutely zero Lorcana.
And we're coming up for set 3 now in overseas. Right?
Set 2.
We're already in set 2, aren't we?
No, set 2 isn't.
Okay.
We're in spoiler season for set 2.
Spoiler season for set 2. Okay, so we're getting into the Metal Raiders arc for those who have played Yu-Gi-Oh. We're getting into
into beta
now of Lorcana, and they pretended it didn't exist at PAX. It just didn't exist.
No one mentioned it.
No one mentioned it.
Yeah.
And this is meant to be the huge takeover, the huge game. This
is
the
next card game after Magic, everyone.
This is the next Flesh and Blood. This is the next Magic the Gathering. This is the next big.
Oh, speaking of Flesh and Blood, sorry, I gotta say a real funny thing.
Okay.
2 lovely gentlemen on Sunday. On Sunday, I had no panels. I just chilled and played games all day, right? I was talking to some friends from the store, Andrew, who plays in our Blood Bowl League here, and Blake, who does a lot of LCG stuff. Just chatting to them, talking about what we're seeing at PAX and all that kind of stuff, and talking about what games we demoed. And 2 guys were sitting 2 chairs over. And one of them turned to us and was like, "Hey, I'm really sorry to interrupt. Do any of you guys know how to play Flesh and Blood?" Because they just got the round the table multiplayer blitz decks. And both Andrew and Blake turned to me and went, "Ooh." So for those who don't know the history, I have a problem with Flesh and Blood, which you can find on our blog here at Vault Games. And we've stopped stocking it at Vault. Basically, we'll just kind of there's problems within the game structure and the organized play structure, and to an extent some of the community members, that we just decided, well, we're done with it. It's not going to be profitable for us at all. It's not worthwhile having. But what I did do was I still sat down with those 2 guys and I taught them how to play Flesh and Blood.
Yeah, because that's not the point, right?
That's not the point.
It's not Flesh and Blood's fault that these guys want to play a game and spend time together.
Look, honestly, I think it's great that Flesh and Blood is now finally realized casual. It's really funny to look at their blog post to say, since the inception of Flesh and Blood, we've always believed it to be a casual game, which is an absolute lie.
That's a travesty.
But they might be making steps for more casual stuff. Oh yeah, it was their article about now we're doing casual organized play.
Yeah.
The round the table product I think is really great for people getting into the game and wanting a more casual experience, wanting a prepackaged experience as well, not having to deal with deck construction, but literally just here's 4 decks to play games with friends.
Kind of like game nights that they do for Magic, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think that there is something to be said about the idea of going, what's the big thing that makes Magic work? It's Commander. This is the multiplayer format.
Yeah.
We're just that's casual. So by definition, we guess multiplayer is casual. We're going to support casual by having a multiplayer deck setup. So there's a little bit of I feel like maybe we just have a bad taste in our mouths from the game.
Yeah.
There's also
and look, I definitely think there's a future if we come back to it in 6 to 8 months and Flesh and Blood's got all their wrinkles kind of ironed out in this kind of environment, then who knows, maybe we'll start stocking it again and start running OP for it again.
Because that was really the breakdown, wasn't it? It was simply just because here at Vault we're very casual oriented, very gameplay focused, very just community driven. So when Flesh and Blood was going in a direction that wasn't supporting that as much, we kind of stepped away from it.
Yeah.
So not to say that we hate it or to say that it's like a bad game, just to say that it wasn't going in the direction that we wanted to support.
Yeah, and you know,
And if it is now,
if it is now, maybe we'll see it. But yeah, I still sat down with those guys. I spent half an hour running through the entire gameplay with them and helping them through, I think, like 4 turns each and getting them into the game.
I'm sure they really appreciated that too.
Yeah.
They probably had a great
Yeah.
game.
So whatever store down in Gippsland, Victoria, you're welcome.
You know what? Thanks, guys.
I think you just got 2 new Flesh and Blood players. But yeah, so that was
speaking
PAX.
of, again, speaking of a game that wants to get people involved.
Yeah.
Let's roll back to this Lorcana
All
discussion.
right,
Because
Lorcana.
we've been talking about PAX for a while. We want to talk about it when we get out of Dylan's system as well, because it's been a very exciting time.
All right.
But this is what we're really getting to the conversation point today is Lorcana, and more importantly, its distribution and history already within the world and most importantly, Australia.
Yep. So Lorcana. So for those who don't know, Lorcana is a Disney-based trading card game. It is designed by a gentleman named Ryan Miller in conjunction with a company called Ravensburger.
What a name, by the way.
What a name.
Ravensburger.
Ravensburger basically has the Disney license for a lot of stuff. They do Villainous. They do all the puzzles around Disney stuff as well.
But which for reference, right, is like board games and puzzles.
Yeah.
So this company that doesn't make competitive card games, however,
Yeah. So
is now building a collectible and competitive card game.
collectible competitive card game. Yes. So it's
Akin to something like Magic the Gathering.
yeah. So it came out in August this year.
Mhm.
It came out in August this year in the US, a few countries in Europe. I think it was Germany, UK, and I think France and Spain.
I was going to say, I know Spain got it. Don't know about France.
Yeah. Well, I think France got it because of
France and
Disneyland.
Italy? Maybe Italy has it.
Or Disney World or whatever's in France, Disneyland Paris. And then I think
Of course.
only Japan in Asia.
Correct.
And that's it. That's all that got it. And the entire release was allocated to stores across those regions. And for us here in Australia, we have been told to expect it anywhere between April and August next year.
So as we've talked about, possibly set 4's release.
Yeah, around anywhere between set 4 to set 5.
Crazy.
So revised to
Yeah.
When was Arabian Nights?
Yeah. Well, right before then. So yeah, about that time.
So yeah, imagine magic without not seeing anything
Not
until
seeing anything. Yeah.
past revised.
Oh my gosh.
So
It's
yeah,
hard to imagine. So, okay. So this game's not showing up in Australia.
nope.
Basically, as if we can't have it. But even where it was distributed, we also saw huge problems.
Yes. So
Straight
stock
immediately.
allocations happened across the board to all stores. Realistically, the only people that have it in stock right now seem to be big box retailers like Walmart, or of course scalpers. There was a lot of anti-scalping techniques that were created by the stores, which I really commend. One of the big ones was when you came in to pick up the game, they wouldn't ship it. If you came in to pick up the game, they would break the seal on it as well in front of you and then hand it to you so that you couldn't then on-sell it as a seal, new and sealed. Not like that mattered much because the plasticless packaging meant that people could actually, with small hands, could actually get in and pull the packs out.
You could also push the box, right?
Yeah.
And the packs would fall out.
Yes.
So yeah.
So yeah, anti-tampering wasn't really like great in that one. So it's definitely reached the scalpers market, which is I guess a big problem for a card game that wants to expand its player base. Because at the end of the day, it's a card game, right? It's a collectible card game. What makes this card game collectible? It's the ability to play those cards. Now, what that means for the game is when there's a meta, like, was it like Elsa's Frozen kind of stuff is huge. There's like a mythic Elsa that's like $60 or $70.
Insane. Already, right?
Yeah, already.
Because that's the thing about these games. Like, they're not collectibles. They're not like baseball cards. They're
yeah,
like playing pieces.
they're playing pieces. You
So how
need them to play the game.
How the game plays is how those cards have value, more than just how hard they are to get.
Exactly. So stores across America, like the big thing is I am in a couple of industry groups for America, and seeing the like effects of this, basically just the cut allocations across the board.
And this was also a thing where it's like, because those cut allocations, right, and because the nature of how hobby stores kind of work in a competitive space as well, we were seeing not just scalping happening from people like individuals, like people from retailers themselves.
Yes.
It's like we were seeing examples of, trying to unseal boxes essentially, or promising unsealed boxes, right? By saying, oh, we don't want you to resell these, but then offering those customers refunds, my apologies, if they don't want those boxes unsealed. But then when those refunds came back, those same stores were selling for legitimately triple the retail value.
Yeah, some stores did do that. Look, there's definitely something to be said about finding the market line. And Vault has done that in the past with first edition Flesh and Blood stuff. But keep that in mind too, that in this world where Flesh and Blood first edition existed, Unlimited existed within 3 weeks.
Exactly.
And that does not exist in Lorcana.
Exactly.
There is no Unlimited. Everything is first edition. The game doesn't really have too much, like, in terms of, you look at Magic and their collectible variants right now as well. It even Flesh and Blood's collectible variants with cold foils and even gold foils for like their competitive events.
Yeah, the promos,
Yeah, that doesn't really exist in Lorcana. It's like rainbow foil and bust.
Yeah.
So the collectability, like, variant argument of cracking boxes just really isn't there.
Yeah, because also, so Flesh and Blood, for its quick little history, obviously, Legend Story Studios were built from a New Zealand company that was actually selling Yu-Gi-Oh! Singles.
Mm-hmm.
So it was Yu-Gi-Oh! Singles.com or Yu-Gi-Oh! Cardsingles.com, one of those two. And then they had kind of like a dispute with Konami and went like, okay, well, we're not going to be selling Yu-Gi-Oh! Singles anymore.
Allegedly, we got to say all this.
Yeah, allegedly, right? This is just like over the grapevine, I guess. But they go, okay, we're going to make Flesh and Blood. We're going to make our own card game. That way we can kind of control how it works. So they came from a company that understood pretty meticulously how kind of distribution, rarity,
how
promos,
collectability works.
Collectabilities, and also like tournament structure and that kind of stuff works.
Mm-hmm.
There's a company that went like, well, we all play Yu-Gi-Oh! We've seen it for years.
Yeah.
So we understand how that works. And obviously, if you play any card game, that's Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh!, Pokemon, whatever, you understand the others.
Yeah.
Usually Yu-Gi-Oh! Players understand a little bit how Magic works. Magic players understand a little bit how Yu-Gi-Oh! Works to a degree in that respect. So that's a company that goes, we know how this works. But I like land on this a little bit earlier, but again, Ravensburger is a company that makes board games and puzzles. And that kind of stuff. Or at least like closed box experiences. So to them, this is all brand new.
Yeah. And it's clear that we can see that in their print and run capabilities.
Exactly. And obviously to an extent, I'm not trying to give them no credit and say, oh, they haven't done their research and they're stupid. I'm not saying that at all. Like, they obviously know how these other card games work. So there's a level where they're going on that. But a lot of the success, while Lorcana is, I haven't played it myself, I've seen gameplay, I think it looks quite good. While it probably is a really enjoyable game, it is obviously being sold pretty extensively on its Disney IP.
Yes.
Like stuff
absolutely.
like, as you see,
I mean, even the game's built around it too. Like, one of the elements in it is there's a part of the game called songs, which actually act as like your sorceries. And you can play your songs for free if they're sung by a character that has a mana cost the same or greater than the mana cost, the ink cost, of that song.
Right.
So, it's the game plays like a Disney game too.
Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's like, when I play, because I love Disney's Villainous, right? I'm always raving on about Disney Villainous. I think the game is freaking awesome. I've played tons of that game, right? I think that game is also, like, thematically, its mechanics work with the theme really well. Like, it feels like when you play those decks, you really feel like that evil character, and you really feel like you're running through the movie. And there are points in the middle of your gameplay where you're like, oh, I'm kind of at this part of the movie, aren't I? Like, I love Jafar for that reason, where you're like, hey, I just hit the middle point of the movie. You know what I mean? Now, as a guy who experienced most of Disney first through a game called Kingdom Hearts, which is a very messed up way to see Disney at first. Like, I'd never seen Aladdin.
I think I'd played of Disney.
Yeah, I'd played Aladdin multiple times in Kingdom Hearts, maybe 4 or 5 times before I even like looked at the movie. I think I saw the Will Smith Aladdin before I saw the Disney Aladdin. That's how bad that is. I know. Yeah, everyone in the room does not like that, right? I know. And you know what? Can I say I like the Will Smith Aladdin? But anyway, that's not the point. I think the movie was really good. But anyway, point being is I think Ravensburger landed with a Villainous, right? So I'm not surprised they would have landed with Lorcana. It's probably really interesting.
Yeah.
But this is another segue I want to get into too, as we're talking about the mechanics of Lorcana, right? And we're also talking about the kind of discourse and discussion that's happened with its release, right?
Yep.
And you landed on Mr. Miller. What's his first name?
Ryan Miller.
Ryan
the
Miller,
designer.
the
Yep.
designer. And there was also, if I recall correctly,
Yeah.
a bit of a court case to do with.
Yes, there is a lawsuit.
There is a
currently,
lawsuit.
Going through the courts over in the US.
So for reference, right, Lorcana is having this kind of rough release. Okay,
Yep.
It's massively worldwide IP is not being produced massively worldwide. We've established it's not in Australia, which I'm not trying to say Australia is like objectively necessary
Look,
for the success of your game. I'm just saying that
it's not even like realistically, it's not even in China.
not in China.
Which would eat that shit up entirely. It's not in like even card games get absolutely like I want to say demolished. When I say demolished, I mean they just eat it all up, and that's in Singapore.
Oh, absolutely.
Singapore absolutely loves card games.
Oh, yeah.
Without a doubt.
And Brazil.
And Brazil, yeah.
Like Yu-Gi-Oh, for a good example, is massive.
It just sits
Brazil.
in this for those regions. It's for some reason it just sits in this perfect place of gameplay and collectability for trading card games. Like
Yep.
we saw it with Flesh and Blood, we've seen it with Yu-Gi-Oh, we've seen it with Magic. Like it just, oh my god. So yeah, it's quite strange that a worldwide property for a worldwide game is not being distributed worldwide. But yeah, in America, yeah, during
all of this, during its release, we also have this court case come up.
Yeah, so in the it's in the state courts in California. It is Upper Deck Entertainment, which are they're also a game publisher and a game producer. So they originally do like trading cards in general for like, you know, baseball, basketball, all that kind of stuff. What's up?
They're sort of one of their bigger properties, Upper Deck, that people might remember back in the day was the WoW TCG.
Yeah.
Yes, the WoW TCG.
So before Hearthstone,
yeah,
the physical World of Warcraft.
they
TCG.
also had they also did the Legendary series through Marvel, and also translated that into Aliens vs Predators and Firefly, all this kind of stuff. So
Yeah,
they had
Legendary is
a
very
deck
much.
building game system that they have as well. Upper Deck, they produce good shit. They produce good games. They're good fun.
And they hire the right people to
And they
produce
hire
those
the right
games.
people.
For example,
Ryan Miller. So the current court case Upper Deck has brought to the courts accuses. It's against both Ryan Miller and Ravensburger, and it's up on the screen now. It has a complaint for breach of contract, breach of fiduciary duty, fraud, which is a civil code violation, inducing breach of written contract, and negligent interference with prospective economic relations, constructive trust, and conversion, and unfair business practices. Is that all the counts there, Connor? Yes. So yeah, 8 different counts there. What's really interesting is some of those are directed, like it looks like they're all for both of those, but the reality is I think breach of contract, fraud, and I think negligent interference are all like the main things focusing at Mr. Miller, and breach of fraud,
constructive
inducing breach of written contract, constructive trust, conversion, and unfair business practices are likely being
to
point to
Ravensburger.
Ravensburger.
So yeah, because like obviously it's not Ryan Miller and Ravensburger, all of these things. It's obviously like
it's a mix, and like as we get into the court case, we can have a look at a bit more. Basically, what happened is at one point, Mr. Miller was designing a game for Upper Deck Entertainment that was based on I think
Rush of Icor, I think it was called.
Rush of Icor. Yeah, I think it's like a card game based on like Mayan or like Aztec stuff or something like that.
Yep.
And at the same time as that was reaching the end of its like original development cycle, because games take some time, you got to develop the game, and then you got to prototype it, and then you got to play test it, and then that's when you start seeking art and introducing art for components and stuff, and then you've got further playtesting and design changes. So we're talking about like in the early days of this game, when Upper Deck is now at a point where they're like, well, now we need to start investing in this game and buying getting the artwork done and getting all these elements together, doing our press prototypes, all that kind of stuff, which as someone who has published a game before is a lot of work.
It's a nightmare.
Yeah, it's a nightmare. So what happened?
Sorry, go ahead.
What happened is when it reached this stage, it turns out that Mr. Miller was also engaging with Ravensburger to design a card game.
There was if I recall correctly, there was a 6-month overlap.
Yeah, there was a 6-month overlap.
Him being removed from the project that was Rush of Icor, and him, or I think he left the project, and then him working on Ravensburger's
Lorcana, which became Lorcana.
Now, also, I think the rush of iCore, right? The joke of the iCore, and this is where we kind of get into the whole thing, was this mechanic that is developed core into Lorcana, which is this ink spot,
yeah,
mechanic.
the resource mechanic.
The resource mechanic was allegedly ripped from Rush of iCore, as in this kind of iCore, this kind of oil, this kind of same concept.
Yeah. So I think if we go down, there's actually like a table of the similarities.
Yep.
Which, this is really interesting because there's something to be said about how this works too. This has existed before.
And this is, sorry to interrupt. So this is, stop Connor where you're at here. This is what I read as well. So there was a 2018 Upper Deck Gaming Summit leading to iCore, right? Where they had people coming in to talk about the games. And this is apparently where Ravensburger and their associates got involved with the project.
Oh, Rush of iCore was a TCG. It wasn't even a single game. It was meant to be like, oh, cool,
yeah,
cool,
it was
cool.
actually going to be essentially Lorcana, right?
Yeah.
But not Disney IP. And then apparently, yes. So apparently they were there. And this was where the first collusion possibly happened. There's no evidence to support this, which is the interesting part of this dynamic.
The main thing is that there was an agreement around stuff being designed at this summit, and it's a very big gray area. There's one interesting thing about games, right? Is you cannot copyright mechanics.
And this is the open gaming license debacle with Dungeons and Dragons.
Yes.
The reason why this whole thing happened is because Dungeons and Dragons can't copyright their mechanics. They can only copyright the IP and the naming and the formatting of those mechanics.
So you can copyright Tash's hideous laughter.
Correct.
You can't copyright the effect of a spell similar to Tash's hideous laughter.
Yes. And there are layers of the way that spell is formatted that you can.
Yep.
But as in the fact that you have a spell and you can cast it, and this is how it works in the turn, and this is the spell,
and this is the effect
it uses,
and this is the effect it has on its target.
It has its effect. That can't be copyrighted.
That can't be copyrighted.
Because obviously, like, without any, and there's, math it out in the chat if I'm wrong here, guys, in the comment section, but, you'd run out.
Yes.
And you can't copyright that because you run out. Like,
well, there's 62, according to Board Game Geek, I haven't checked the recent numbers. Last time I checked, it was like 62 or 61 different game mechanics listed on Board Game Geek, right? Every board game in existence is a different mix and addition and subtraction of those mechanics.
Exactly. Kind of like how in Magic everything is kicker.
Yeah, everything's kicker.
Kind of like everything
or
is
in
kicker.
music where everything is made up of 8 notes played over a scale.
Exactly.
Is it 8? A, B.
Yeah. G.
7 notes. Same 7 notes over a scale.
G. I was like, my brain like H key. Wait
a
H
minute.
Key.
7 notes on a scale that then go to different keys. That's it.
Exactly.
That's the same. That's the same thing for music. And it's just how you put them all together to make the mysterious soup that is your creation.
And then you call this soup resolution a beholder, and now you can have it.
Yeah.
But not what it is, just what it looks like and what it is called.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you keep scrolling, Connie. You keep looking.
Yeah.
So I just want to stop there for a second.
This is where that summon agreement came in about Miller doing stuff with Rush of iCore and Upper Deck, and then he actually got a work for hire agreement as well. Which is typically a thing that says anything you develop with us is ours.
So from June 2019 through to March 2021.
Yep.
So he would work and complete various milestones and expansions for Rush of iCore,
including a single player demo deck of 20 to 30 cards.
Correct. And it says here, an intellectual property developed by Upper Deck and Miller to create Rush of iCore belonged solely to Upper Deck, which is the important point of this discussion.
Which is what work for hire agreements do, by the way.
And
if you are not familiar with how copyright law works, I'd recommend looking it up. The Digital Millennium Copyright Act for us here in Australia is important. Essentially, any work you do under hire for someone is owned by the person who hired you. Apart from your moral rights, I think is the only thing you can't give up, which is essentially if someone hires you to make artwork and then they go put it on like paraphernalia for a race group, for a racist hate group, you can tell them to stop using it and sue them for that. Like that is your moral rights for that artwork, which you absolutely should do anyway. But
this is important where it's like we talk about sorry to interrupt here. Talk about the work of hire agreement. It mentions as well that Rush of iCore and related and underlying materials were works made for hire belonging to Upper Deck.
Yeah.
So this is, again, it's not like, Rush of iCore is ours, you can't do anything. It's that the materials and the related and underlying materials of the game also belong to us.
Yes.
which is where we translate into Lorcana, where we talked about, and I learned this earlier, where, he's developed these mechanics and they kind of translate between these two games.
Yeah. And then they go through like how they all milestones work and the work for
And
high agreement.
he did
step that
complete
through.
them. They mentioned that as well. Ultimately, he did complete them. He had direct access to their confidential proprietary information, including without limitation, its draft rules, concepts, components, design, X, Y, and Z, right?
And then,
so he maintained access to them even after terminating his relationship with them, and used, reference, and or otherwise relied on them to create Lorcana for Ravensburger. And
yes,
that's
that's their complaint. Yeah.
So it is. He had these materials. They belong to us. After his termination, he has kept them. Now,
the key thing is that the agreement was terminated in October 2021, and I believe Lorcana was announced in August of 2021.
Correct.
Or something like that, which meant that there was a crossover of development time. If you want to scroll down, was it before? It should say something there. There we go. Announces Lorcana, approximately 2.5 in around September of 2022. And then they mentioned that it was in development for quite some time, I believe, at one point.
So it's a little bit further. I think it's in...
It might be in the Gamer article. They mentioned that they mentioned that the date, it kind of crossed over. Sorry, we got ad block.
It looks like you need to go remove your ad blocker.
No.
Support us, please.
Yeah, remove your ad blocker. It shows ads anyway.
Nice ad blocker, bro. Does it come in removing ads?
Got him. Yeah, there's a mention, some interview with the Ravensburger guys mentioned that it was actually in development for a time period that does cause a crossover.
Yeah, because again, you know what's funny is that, again, it was kind of them, excuse my French, but kind of swinging their bigness, right? By going, oh, guys, don't worry. We've been doing this for decades. Our team, even though we personally as a publishing company aren't the company that does TCGs, our team knows TCGs. In fact, we've been working on this since the way back, right back in August, and then the company now is going, wait a minute, what do you, Updeck goes, you couldn't be working on it in August, right? Because he still worked for us.
Yeah.
And then they go, well, you're not lying,
so someone's,
right?
who's lying?
Who's lying?
Look, it's funny to look back on that article now too, back in the 2022 article. Like, oh, don't worry, we've been working on it for ages. We've got everything planned, and then instant like product shortages, constantly stuff. Like, look, if you want to talk about what this reflects on, you know what? At the end of this, I'm going to sum up. I'm going to do like a breakdown of my whole like debate topics for Lorcana. So let's just keep going. So yeah, they go through about how Rush of Icor works. If you just want to scroll down, there is a table somewhere that has
it should look like a table.
What the like crossover between the two, and it's quite funny to read because some of it does read of, well, we rotate our cards 90 degrees, and I'm like, hi, we're Hasbro.
Hi,
we're Wizards of the Coast. We have some questions to ask.
That's it's funny because like Upper Deck, right, who works on the WoW TCG, right? They're like, we turn our cards sideways. Like, yeah, the World of Warcraft TCG exhausts, which is literally tapping as a mechanic and operates exactly the same way.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that you say that because you could argue that you stole that mechanic from Magic.
Yeah.
So.
I think the interesting thing is they're prepared for relief, by the way, in this as well, is they don't want to stop. They want injunctive release enjoining Ravensburger from publicly releasing. So they tried to stop it. Obviously, you can't do that. It's too far down. But the big thing they want there then is restitution or punitive damages appropriate to that.
Yeah, to punish them and deter others from engaging in similar misconduct. So basically saying like, we essentially sue them for so much that
and
other companies don't steal from other companies.
And also, by the way, Lorcana, because that's part of our game, you're gonna give us some money now.
Yeah, now you've got royalties.
Which means that there might be royalty payments. Which also plays into another interesting discussion, another interesting reason I have why about Lorcana and my problems with it.
But it's also royalties with interest, isn't it, too? Because they're also saying
because
they're asking for interest as well at the maximum legal rate, which is a lot of money too.
Well, the big thing is that the reason why you ask for interest, right, is because it takes time to get through a court case. It can take several years. Like if you want to look at an Australian example, apology, like a warning for anyone who went through the Robo-Debt saga, but this is something we want to talk about here when it comes to legal court cases. Is things take time to go through. And one of the things that happened, one of the things that ultimately brought down the Robo-Debt system, the for anyone that doesn't know, the robo-debt system is an algorithm was made that determined that some people owed our services, Australia, which is like Centrelink, which is if you're on like benefits, like a basic income to help you get through what you need to. Yeah, the dole. I think I'm trying to compare it to like other countries as well. But if you get those fortnightly payments to make so that you can survive, this algorithm just did very incorrect math and randomly determined that these people had been overpaid by several thousands of dollars of help payments,
which they then randomly owed
social
back
payments,
to the government.
which they then owed back to the government, and then the government would hound those people for them and eventually like sue them or send debt collectors. And it was a very big problem over here in Australia, and I'm surprised that more people haven't lost their job and gone to jail over it. But from what I understand, there are several legal challenges pending now for people's criminal convictions. Anyway, what brought down that system, right, was a legal case that was brought by, I think it was like a Melbourne-based legal aid center and a lawyer. This lawyer had an Oz study like payment taken, like this whole thing for her Oz study taken out by the Services Australia guys, the government. But what she asked in her lawsuit was not just for the money back that they had illegally taken from her,
but more importantly,
but also the interest, right? And because the government like closed her debt, said, oh, she doesn't have a debt anymore, and then refunded the payment, they didn't refund the interest with it. And so she said, hey, by the way, can I have that interest? And the government didn't pay it.
They refused.
They refused to pay it. And that is what brought down the entire like robo-debt scheme. That's what made it start folding, was because the government refused to pay for that interest payment. And that is why when you have a contract that says, hey, I want the interest at the maximum legal rate as well for this,
that's why
you do it, is because your legal case, you may start this back in like 2018, 2019, or the problem may have occurred in 2019 that you should have been seeing money from. You didn't bring the case until 2020, 2021, and then even then you've got another 2 years to go through at a minimum, pretty much, unless it's a really fast and really obvious case. You got like 2 years to go through the court process, right?
It could easily be like 2024 by the time it's resolved.
24, right? So you're owed money from 2018 to 2024, and as we've all seen in recent inflation rates, like just the last 2 years have been like anywhere between 4 to 7%. Like that span of time compounded over those years is going to be worth a lot of money, particularly if you're owed, millions of dollars from these sales. So by including that, obviously, Upper Deck's done the smart thing here and said, hey, look, we don't care that you're stealing it. We just want to be paid for our shit.
Well, okay, to be fair, it's like, we do care that you're stealing it.
Well, yeah.
But again, we want, what as the term they use, we want the restitution.
Yeah, well, the big thing there too is they also want a receiver as an ELSA to sign Upper Deck's provisional patent. So
ELSA?
Upper Deck has started to ELSA. Upper Deck has created a patent system as well for their game that obviously was, I guess, going through that process as well, because obviously we've all seen the patents for Magic. Wizards of the Coast has a patent on tapping, which, it's hard to enforce, but we went through the era of patent trolls for apps. So,
and also like you say it's hard to enforce, but it's like you're talking about Wizards of the Coast.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like it's one of those things where this comes back to the idea of punishing the company and then deterring others from engaging in similar misconduct. You don't it's almost like with Wizards of the Coast, you don't poke the bear. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah,
it's
you don't want to test them on it.
You don't want to test Wizards of the Coast and the money they can throw behind themselves to try and make tapping a thing in your game. You just work around it. Like, for example, calling it exhausting.
Yes, calling it exhausting. Which is what Upper Deck did.
Upper Deck did it.
And Fantasy Flight's been doing it for years.
And we landed on that earlier.
Oh, actually, no. I think it was kneeling for Game of Thrones. You kneel and then you ready. But yeah, Connor, you had a question you wanted to ask before.
I was just like looking at it and then asking for, like interest and all that stuff in the context of like, stores are slashing allocations and
distributors are slashing allocations
there
to
we go,
stores.
There we go. And but like their run to print, they're not kind of meeting demand.
Yep.
Do you think that if Upper Deck does win this, they take a big financial chunk out of the game and maybe slow it down, if not sort of cripple it financially?
I think if Upper Deck wins this case and gets a massive payout, they're not reasonable about. And when I say they're not reasonable about, I mean like they just say, pay us all our money now. Like the old like you pay me thing. Yeah. I think Ravensburger's done for, because we're talking about a game that like if we look at how much they're earning from the game, for a booster, we sell for $7. We probably get it for anywhere between $4.50, $5.
Those distributors are getting it from the warehouse.
From the warehouse. The distributors will get it for like half that price probably. So
$2.50.
We're talking like $2.50, anywhere between like $2 to $3. Like $2.50 at most probably is like the real game changer. Is the real game like number there. That is what they're paying per booster. That to the publisher, if they're going direct from the publisher, that not to mention that in case there's another whole like wholesaler logistics between the publisher, that may be a problem as well. But yeah, like if they're getting that for like $2.50 from the publisher like we are talking about 15 pieces of cardboard in a foil
plastic
wrapper,
wrap,
plastic wrap. But when you factor in collation machinery, QA testing, all that kind of stuff, even logistics and import duties, I think it's safe to say at most like 50 cents a pack is the cost at the production side.
Yeah, and that's considering all of the overheads, all this extra stuff. Yeah. Like as in physically making the product, 50 cents would be like almost like a massive overstatement, right? It'd be costing them next to nothing to make.
So you look at like, $2 of each pack sale is essentially what Ravensburger has to spend on licensing, on paying back artists, paying back development, legal, their company shit, marketing, all that kind of stuff, right? So if Upper Deck is, if Upper Deck, if I want to say smart about it, they will probably just go for a piece of the pie.
Yeah, right. So
just to go back to like where it all ends up is those $2, a portion of that is going to increasing load. It's like in increasing the amount of production. Because a lot of that production is upfront cost. Like you need to pay at a minimum like 50% before you even start production. And if we're talking about, set 2's coming out, and set 2 should technically be at logistics already. And set 3 is probably going to print run now. Like you need to pay for all that. And you've got one set actually in the market. So that's a lot of upfront costs
which is possibly why the allocation has been shrunken so much.
Yeah.
Because there's so much upfront cost. And maybe Ravensburger wasn't, not necessarily aware of it. I don't want to say that, but, maybe they overestimated their ability / underestimated the card game's ability to grow.
And part of me would argue, too, that I guess they're actually not making any profit on the first print run of, like on that first set of Lorcana, because they're essentially taking all that profit and then just chucking into more production. Yeah,
as in with the promise that this will grow into something like a mega game.
Yeah, and that's just investment. That's just investment 101 for a game anyway.
Yeah. So to finalize that point, it's if Upper Deck goes, give us all the money now, we want a huge chunk, Ravensburger's done, right? Probably, but the likelihood of that happening is fairly low.
Yeah,
we can agree.
Look, if Upper Deck wants to set themselves up for some money for over a period of time,
which they likely are looking at, which is why we're talking about, they are talking about things like royalties.
Yeah, and they're talking about patents as well.
They're talking about patents. So it looks like they're going in the direction of give us the slow burn. We want a chunk of this because, again, we believe this was actually ours that you've now taken from. So we want something from this because we literally owned it at some point.
Yeah.
It looks like if that is the case, and it does look that way, it's not going to destroy Ravensburger. Will this impact the release kind of state and cycle of Lorcana? Likely. But again, we're also talking about a game that has a very questionable release cycle already.
Yes.
So we're talking about a game that is already taking a lot of cuts where we don't feel like it needs to, but maybe the company has decided it needs to. If it takes more cuts, right? Again, we're talking about a game that I don't think... Okay, let's go take a step into a different kind of conversation here. I think that the optics for Lorcana is really bad. I think that the optics for Lorcana is... People don't... Okay, so what is the game even marketed to? Because the people who really care about Disney as an IP aren't necessarily card game players, right? This is like the idea of Lord of the Rings selling to Magic, the idea of different IPs getting involved. Like, if you really like Disney, that does not translate to, I really like competitive card game experiences.
Yeah.
It translates to, I really like freaking Disney. That's all that
Yeah,
means,
yeah.
right? So if they're marketing to those kind of people, right, then the distribution is bad, right?
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
they're marketing to competitive card game players, then the OP system, the rarities, the competitive element is also bad. And then their distribution is even worse,
Yeah.
right? So for me, I think that what I've seen online, after doing some pretty, I believe to be extensive research, I think the optics are really bad. I cannot see a single person who's going, I'm in love with Lorcana as an entire like design. Like as an entire game, I'm
Yeah.
in love with this. I've seen a lot of people who say, you know what, here's a funny one. I've seen a lot of people who will say, and I've spoken to them myself and then also seen them online, who say, if it's Disney, I'll buy it. Like, I love this thing because I love anything Disney. Like, you know, anybody, just look up Disney adults and you'll see what
Yeah.
I'm kind of getting into, where it's like, if this thing is Disney, I'll buy it. People lived at Disney World. Those are the people I think this company wants to sell this game to, right? And I think Disney's Villainous is a great example of a game that doesn't sell itself from being this really competitive element or being this really
It doesn't sell
nuanced
itself
game,
for being a game. It sells itself for being Disney. Yeah.
And I think that's fine. I'm not trying to shit on that. I think that's
And you know what?
excuse
That's
my
probably
French.
why Marvel Villainous didn't sell as much.
Exactly. Because I think it sells for being Disney, right? And for me, I see a lot of people who are like, this is Disney, I'll play it, I'll buy it, it's Disney. But not a lot of people who are like, I need a new card game in my life because Magic the Gathering is stale, or I don't play Yu-Gi-Oh anymore, or I don't want this other game, or I couldn't get into any of these games, so I need something new and fresh. I think if you don't get into these other games, Lorcana's really not for you in the first place because it is one of these games. And if you are in one of these games, the momentum of these games is usually tracking so far forward that you don't have the space, the time, the income for Lorcana unless you're looking to turn it into a collectible profit. And if you're looking to make it into a profit, if you're looking to work into the secondary market, as a lot of these people are, which we're seeing a lot of, then this game is for you. But you're not selling necessarily. I mean, to a
To
degree
other
we are.
gamers.
To other gamers. To a degree we are. We landed on the Elsa discussion now. It's a very powerful deck, and that's why that card is very expensive. But it's also freaking Elsa, which is also why it's expensive. So I think there's like some elements to be said about that. And that worries me a lot about the growth of the game and the kind of design of the game, right? Where, and I think this is a little bit true about, we notice this with Flesh and Blood as well. I think if you miss that opening, if you miss that grand wave of the first set and the excitement and the getting people to play the game before it becomes a monetary nightmare, you're going to fumble and fall. If we get Lorcana set 4, set 5, right? The market will be so ingrained by then that
Not to
nobody will
mention-
be able to access it from day dot.
Yeah. And not to mention that we're also
everyone-
talking about from a competitive perspective. No one's had access to the first 4 sets.
Exactly.
First 3 sets. So your decks are not going to be up to the same par as anyone else playing the game. Any online content around deck building is completely pointless to you because how the hell are you going to get hold of, like, I don't know,
Winnie the Pooh.
how are you going to get hold of generic Goofy 4? Like, he's
Yeah.
in set 2. Eat shit. Sorry,
Exactly.
kid.
And that's the thing as well, because we haven't even talked about something like a standard format and rotation.
Yeah.
We haven't talked about whether it's eternal, what the plan is there. Like, that's another danger too. So I think that, because I land on Winnie the Pooh because I saw the set kind of discussions around the spoiler season for set 2, and there's Winnie the Pooh in that. And I think that, yeah, so to roll my point around, I think that it's very dangerous because, yeah, the meta is one thing, but then, and the accessibility of those cards is another thing. But then because of that, right, that makes our Australian market shift tremendously and goes like, okay, but if you don't, like, I already forget, Fjendel's Spring Tunic,
Yep.
right, for Flesh and Blood, was the most premium piece of equipment in the game for a very long time. In Australia, it was the most expensive by a huge margin right up until that first reprint set with the white borders came out, really until then. And even with the Unlimited run, it was still a $200+ card Australian, right? So you had a card that was like one of the better cards in the game. And a lot of people agreed, if you had one, you should always play it. And it was, I don't want to say it was winning or losing games, but it was
definitely
warping formats.
It was definitely a staple in your constructed builds.
It was definitely warping formats for sure.
Yeah.
So if you didn't have it, you didn't have it. And that's where Lorcana's going to get to, where it's like, well, if you don't have it, are you playing competitively?
Yeah.
And if you're not playing competitively, why are you coming to a tournament at your local store? This is what I want to come back to as well. Because if you come to a tournament at your local store, and let's say this, right? We're in Brisbane. So, right? So, and I don't think it's going to affect every hobby store ever. Because we're in city Brisbane, right? Very expensive place to live. we have a lot of people in our community, and this goes for every card game, that are willing to spend the money because
Yeah.
they have the money. They live in Brisbane City. You know what I mean? It's not cheap. So therefore, the people who live here tend to have a little bit more expendable income. That's how they can justify living in Brisbane. Especially if they work within the government, right? So they're going, okay, I'm willing to buy these expensive cards. So you come to an event and you got people playing cards against you that you literally just cannot access.
Yeah, you can't.
It is impossible.
And
because
it's,
sorry, go on.
It's like having I mean, I can't even say like reserve list lands because dual lands are like they're nothing in comparison to shit like this. It's imagine if what is it?
It's like Shelter of the Apocalypse, I think is a good example of this card, right?
Yes, no, the mana. My mind has frozen. The 0-cost mana rock.
Crypt.
Mana Crypt. It's like if Mana Crypt was only printed in the US.
Yeah, exactly. Right?
Yeah.
So
if you went to a competitive EDH tournament, there would be, I can guarantee you, in a place like Brisbane, in Sydney, in Melbourne, in the capital cities, at a capital city store, or even at your pro tours or whatever GPs that Magic, whatever you want to call Disney's GPs, I guess, like, I don't know, Mickey Mouse fun houses.
Ink splats.
Ink splats. Gosh, Mickey.
Yeah. Hollow Bastion. That was just for us.
That was for us. My mind fried. You're gonna have these people that have, you know,
well, of course they are.
Mana Crypts.
They're not there. Also, this is a card game. It's a competitive card game.
Yes.
These people are not always here for fun. They're not always here to have a conversation with you. They're not always here for this reason. In fact, rarely they are. Very often, they're here to win, which isn't wrong. And I don't want to imply that there's anything like negative about that.
No.
But when that comes up, they're going to bring these cards and they're not going to feel sorry for you if you can't access those because you just didn't come to win. But again, winning is one thing and liking winning is one thing, right? But it takes a very specific type of person to be able to get demolished and lose every game. I've met some people that can do it. I know a few people that can do it. But it's a very specific kind of person who can just be demolished and knocked down and knocked down and knocked down and keep coming back to the game. And that's why I feel like Lorcana is going to be for Australia, where it's like people are going to invest outward. Okay, so in Yu-Gi-Oh!, a good example, right? In Yu-Gi-Oh!, there's a thing called the TCG and there's a thing called the OCG. I've touched on this a couple of times before, but basically cards released in Japan usually around 6 to 8 months before they release in Australia and Europe and America, right? Sometimes longer, right? And some random cards in those sets don't come in the sets here. And then they come in as what's called OCG imports in even later sets. So some random cards get like drip fed later on, sometimes a year to a year and a half, right? But you cannot play them. OCG cards are banned in all TCG events and banned from the TCG altogether, right? And it's not just because of that. There's a lot of other layers. For example, the amount of product being made and also the rarities are different. A card called Satellanite Deneb was a common in Japan that was worth $1.50. It was an ultra rare in Australia that was worth $50 Australian a piece on release, easily. You know, it's a bit different. But again, they fix this issue in a way by going, okay, well, you know, you can't access these yet? Well, you can't play them ever. Even when they come out in Australia, by the way, even when they come out here, you cannot play those versions. But Lorcana doesn't seem to want to do that. And they've had no conversation about this because they also, to an extent, it seems like they don't care about that, right? Because here's a layer. What is Lorcana to Ravensburger, right? Because again, Flesh and Blood. This is what I do like about Flesh and Blood. Flesh and Blood, what is it to Legend Story Studios?
It's everything.
It's everything. What is this to Ravensburger? It's another Disney game.
Yeah.
Right? So, if I look at Lorcana from the lens of the new Magic the Gathering, I'm incredibly disappointed. Right? If I look at Lorcana from the lens of it's another Disney game, am I as disappointed? Am I as worked up?
Probably not.
But
You're gonna get it someday.
But then we as a store, as a storefront, as supporting communities that want to play games, if we want to support Lorcana, we don't have the capacity to see it as just another Disney game. We have to see it in the capacity of this is a new TCG that we need to respect and treat like the rest of the big names because it's meant to be a big name.
Because we need to run events, we need to invest in community. That's the big thing, I think, with TCGs, that you can really tell what publishers are creating a product and what publishers are creating a game is because when the game drops and those guys, those publishers go, hey, by the way, stores, here is a learn to play kit. Here is how you run a learn to play, and here is how we can help you invest in your community. Because that is the biggest thing for us. Is when the second someone sits down with one of our staff members to learn the game, that's hourly wage are going to cost. right?
Yeah, it costs us money.
And even if it's me just floating around, right? Like floating around the store and showing, like,
time is money. It
time
still
is money.
matters.
I understand that when in a smaller business situation, you shouldn't really measure your time because you're building something bigger. But I mean, Volt's at a point now where I spend a good chunk of my time navigating ways to make sure the business it keeps moving forward, right? And now if
Keep moving forward.
keep moving forward. So when I
is that Disney? Sorry.
I don't know. But when I when I do a learn to play, and I'm still fine doing learn to plays, you need to understand that if I'm sitting down and investing in someone to be part of that community, I'm spending, my time, whatever opportunity cost that I'm losing on, if I need to seek financing for a new element of the business, if I need to run marketing campaigns on a new pre-order.
Marketing is important. Even marketing for events, right?
Even marketing for events, promoting pre-orders for the new board game apiary, these kind of elements, these that bring us money to make sure that we can stay open, are quite important. That, if I'm taking that time out of that schedule to sit down with someone and show them how to play, I want to make sure that I'm getting a return on that investment in the player. Not to think that all players are a balanced book. Like, we need to...
And it doesn't need to be... That play doesn't need to be anything like instant or feel like we need the gratification immediately. It just needs to be, not to cut you short or anything, but everything costs money. And when we're investing in the game, we want the game to grow. And because, and this is important, we don't have a lot of the control. We can control what happens in our community, still to an extent, but I would say, and the numbers here are totally like figments of the imagination. These aren't real numbers because these are unquantifiable math. But I would say, maybe we control 70 to 80% ad-libbed there of how a game performs in our store. But there's a good 30 to 20% of the game. And that's generous to say how it actually projects, and how it actually puts itself forward, and how it actually runs that affects people in our store, right?
And I would even argue that Magic, as the bigger a game gets, the more percentage control the game has over the community, right?
Larger and larger, yeah, for sure.
In the early days in Flesh and Blood, the community, we had 80 to 90% control over the community because we could dictate who should have a look at this game, how it should be learnt in our store, what community we wanted to build with it. We had that control. But then as the game got bigger, and their organized play structures changed. I'm sorry to keep bringing up Flesh and Blood, but it's the thing that I can point to and watch.
Well, let's go. Let's look at another example then. First of all, to jump in with the Flesh and Blood thing as well, I think the game's identity also changed, right?
Yes,
I think
absolutely.
The game started going, what really is this game about? Let's expand on what this game could really be. And I think that for some players as well was a moving point for them. I noticed more and more players who, even when I kind of took a step back from the game, realizing where the secondary market was, I go, very egregious, I could take a step back. Even friends I knew who were I'm committing to this game even further. They were now I'm at the point where this is now a game I don't recognize. And let's go into another game as well, which has that same dynamic of maybe this is not something I recognize anymore, and talk about Magic the Gathering.
Absolutely.
Which is very important.
And that was my next step too, is Magic, I would argue, has anywhere between 40 to 50% control over our community.
Oh, definitely.
Because to have a look at where we came from as a store and what we are at now, our Commander Nights, at Vault now, they still sell out. They sell out quite consistently and quite quickly. But the crowd that are playing now is extremely different to the crowd that we had when we had a store half the size over on Charlotte Street when we first started. And we were selling out events there from I think about 2 years into the process. We were selling out events.
And can I also say, really, even moving into the new store, from someone who's actually run a lot of these events and has been big part of the community as well, even from moving into this new store and selling out from our first couple of events here, even from then to now, we still have a very different community.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of those people as well is coming into almost this Lorcana dynamic and this identity of, I kind of don't necessarily care too much about the game itself, especially in the Commander context where it's really not about the game itself, is it? We're going into this IP debacle. Now, I'm not going to get into this conversation now because I don't think it's valid to go into how, what the ramifications of Assassin's Creed and Fallout and Magic are. But what do they do? Promote? It's getting people into the game who don't care about Magic. It's people who care about those IPs, Lord of the Rings, The Walking Dead, whatever, getting people into the game that way.
And then the other side of it too is, what does it do to people that are already in the Magic?
Exactly.
Which is one of the big reasons after talking to a lot of the people that don't play with us anymore in the community, they haven't left our store to go play somewhere else.
They've stopped playing Magic.
They've stopped playing Magic
Because there's an identity crisis.
Yeah.
It's like, what is the game that I play? Like, okay, and we've talked about this on the show before, and I'll say it every so often, and I'll bring it up every so often because I don't mind talking about it, is that my experiences with Magic, because I've been playing Magic like with just cards like at a kitchen table format since Dark Steel and Mirrodin when I was 8. So I've been playing like for a very, 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 very long time because I'm almost 28 now for reference, those at home. So I've seen the game grow and develop in lots of different ways. And one of the biggest changes I did see was from that 2011 onwards in Commander, where things became Commander, like the game itself became Commander.
Yeah.
And as the game itself becomes Commander, and this is something that we saw with, Rest His Soul, Sheldon Menery building up the pre-DH format. What is Commander? Like, is Commander anymore if everything is Commander? Because Commander was different to Magic. It was Magic and it was Commander. There was Magic, which was like Legacy and Standard. And there was like Modern. That's weird. And there was like Commander. And there was like Dan. And there was like other stuff. You know what I mean? Like Forgetful Fish, I mean to say. But the Commander was in that pile of other things.
Yeah.
But now everything is Commander, that even things like Standard and Modern and Legacy start to go, oh, what's that? Because Magic is Commander. And I definitely know people personally and have seen this online as well of people who feel completely disenfranchised because they got into Commander by going, how can I take these cards I never see play with? Like, as in, I've had this conversation before, but Hornet Queen is a big one for me, where I'm like, I love Hornet Queen. It's a stupid card. It's not very good. But for me, Magic the Gathering and Commander specifically was about, how can I win with Hornet Queen? How can I make Hornet Queen a really cool card that is my whole win condition? If I see it, I go, yes. And I'll still play Hornet Queen today because, I don't think the game's dead personally or anything like that. I'm not trying to imply that, but it's not the same. I think finding the cards that really worked with that and finding ways of making cards like that aren't very good work was what Commander was about.
Yeah.
And nowadays, cards work in Commander or they don't. That's objectively true. And the cards that don't work in Commander get you eyebrow raises from across the table. They make your plays weaker. You fall behind very quickly. It doesn't feel like you can kind of do that anymore. And it's hard to say that as a game grows, strong cards are stronger and weak cards become weaker and older cards become less relevant than newer cards. That's always true. And I have to understand
and that's
that.
power creep.
And that's power creep in any game. And that's something that I'm going to just jump in right now and say, I'm not saying this Hornet Queen is the be-all, end-all of my examples or my point, but it's just a good thing to land on where I played Commander for a reason, and I don't think if I was starting the game now, I'd be finding that reason. I don't think that reason would exist. I feel like I would go, I guess, let's play Commander. I'd learn the game, I'd get involved with the stuff, and I'd have I think if I picked it up today, and I don't think this is even debatable, I'd have a whole different experience with what it is. And I love Magic, and I don't think I'm going to stop playing it because of that, but I definitely don't know if I would have picked it up today.
Yeah.
So I do agree that this disenfranchisement, this identity crisis that it's having, and this kind of comes back to this Lorcana discussion where this kind of identity crisis of what it even is, who it's even trying to sell to, is going to disenfranchise people. And I think, again, this is the Flesh and Blood went through this with its big, expensive kind of secondary market where people kind of look at it from a distance first. That's what I would do with Commander. I look at it from a distance, and I would go, is this what I'm interested in? From a distance, probably not. From a distance of Lorcana, I go, no way. From a distance Flesh and Blood, I would go, no, I don't think so. During those points in time. And we're currently in that point of time with Lorcana where everything looks so bad around the game.
Yeah.
Between the lawsuit.
Around the game to,
around everything to do with the game. So we're talking about the lawsuit. We're talking about the box distribution. We're talking about the actual allocation of those packs. We're talking about the worldwide distribution. There's so many red flags. The community's flack, kind of outrage that's happening between, okay, you tell me this, right? And we were doing our research around Lorcana. You put in your 2 cents too, Connor. How much of the actual gameplay, how much of the meta, how much of the gameplay have you heard people kind of reflect upon?
None.
Net zero.
You talk about this Elsa card being expensive. I don't even know why. Because nobody wants...
So then I guess I've heard some, but it's very minor.
Minor.
It's literally this Elsa's mythic because it's the only Elsa that can play this Elsa song that's played in every deck for free.
But I don't think that's even Lorcana discussion because that could apply to anything.
Yeah.
You could say that's like saying this card is good because it synergizes with a good card.
Yeah.
Okay. So I agree with that. I'm not trying to dismiss that. I'm just saying that
But
I've
that's-
heard so little,
That's the whole meta discussion I've heard.
right? I've also heard so little about Lorcana, but shouldn't that be the most discussion?
Yeah.
That feels like that should be the most discussion, but of course it's not, because we've got so many like just hurdles in the way before we get there. So, and you know what I think broke the camel's back for me a little bit? No PAX representation.
Yeah.
The biggest event for this kind of stuff.
Coming back all the way
All the way
around.
back to the start. Coming
It's not
back
at
to this
PAX.
conversation. It's not at PAX. I told Dylan, right? Okay, so a little inside. As Dylan left for PAX, I told Dylan to let me know how Lorcana went. And Dylan went, there won't be Lorcana at PAX. And I was like, there's no way. And he goes, no, there won't be any PAX. I'm like, there'll be at PAX for sure. And he's like, no way. And then I saw on Facebook, Cassie posted a game they were playing of Lorcana. And I was like, I knew it. That's an easy bet. I told Dylan there'd be Lorcana at PAX. And I spoke to Cassie before I spoke to you. And they were like, I was borrowing Ben's cards. And I was like, wait, no. But like you played it at PAX though, right? Yeah, of course. But only because Ben brought his cards. So what? But why did Ben bring his cards? Well, he just knew there wouldn't be any at PAX. I was like, what did I miss? This is meant to be the biggest release of a card game, since probably Flesh and Blood rocked the meta. And Flesh and Blood was not this big release. It was like this kind of...
It was a slow burn.
It was a slow burn. But it was really much like, hey, there's this new card game. Try it
what's,
out.
What's actually really funny is I think we were one of the first, if not the first store to pick it up in Queensland.
Exactly.
And we were very early in the Australian
Yeah. And when we
market.
heard about this, and I think this is true for even just like the opening crawl of its game, it was just like, there's this new game on the market. You want to try it out? Wow, I really like this. Let's support this. But Lorcana is like, this is the Disney collectible card game. Check this out. Let's go. This is coming out. Everyone get in on this. I heard so much humdrum about it, and we're here.
Yep.
So, go ahead, Connor.
I just wanted to kind of chime in a little bit. Is that I can kind of see with this, like all the red flags, this not necessarily passing the sniff test. I could see a world where we get a catch up with release, but sentiment around the game itself will fall off. The units will still shift, because what it will be is, I can buy these Disney cards for my goddaughter, niece, nephew, son, daughter, and they can just have fun slapping cardboard down around the house that I have to pick up eventually. I think it's like Pokemon cards. I think that's, if they don't get it right going forward, I think that's Lorcana's ultimate fate, is just they'll have enough to keep selling, but I think the game itself will probably...
And I think that Ravensburger also knows this.
Yeah.
I think they definitely know this.
Well, that brings it to the whole thing for me, right? So you ready? This is it. This is Dylan's reasons why I think Lorcana is dead. There you go.
Make like
there's the TikTok.
Can we make like an acronym like doof, 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 as it comes down?
Yeah.
All right.
All right. So number one, distribution is. This has happened before. We've seen it before.
Sorry, I'm just gonna say like put this on the TikTok.
Yeah. You know what? I'll still put it on there.
Anyway, go ahead.
It'll just be like
Riffled out.
Riffled out. But we've seen this before. Now, are they games as big as Lorcana? No. But, they are pretty big. Warhammer Age of Sigmar Champions. This was...
I still have those cards, man.
I know. It was a fun as shit game. Like, I love my Ideneth build that it was the build that didn't exist. You could only build the Ideneth from collecting cards. And I had a really fun deck. I enjoyed it a lot. We never got the second set. The second set appeared, I think, 3 months too late. And then the third set never came.
Can we get a bless up for Keyforge?
Bless up for... Yeah, Keyforge. Yeah. Well, there's a whole other thing for that.
Whole other thing for that.
And here's another one for you. Star Wars Destiny.
A Star Wars game, eh?
A Star Wars game, eh? Oh, don't worry.
Destiny had the dice.
It was a dice game. Yeah, it was a collectible dice game.
That's a cool concept.
It was really cool. It had a deck and it had dice for your characters coming out. It was a fun game. It was a fun game. If you see Mr. Turner floating around, he will give you a game, dude. I gave him all my Star Wars Destiny stuff. They found some old boxes of Star Wars Destiny at a CanCon one year and then just bought it all for like cheap and then just took it all back to their men's shed. So him and Mark, they will play Star Wars Destiny until the cows come home, but they have everything.
Very quick story time. When I used to work at a Game Traders back in my youth, and we used to be because Game Traders, not so much like GameStop or so much like EB Games. We did buy and sell there were loved games, pre-loved games, but we support a lot of card games and a lot of like little like board games like that and a lot of RPGs and stuff like that. So we tried to have more of a community for that. We did things like LARPing, Yu-Gi-Oh tournaments, Magic tournaments, all the good stuff, right? and we used to stock Star Wars Destiny, and we never sold a booster of Star Wars Destiny
Really?
in the entire time that I worked there. Like there might have been one or two hyperbole, right? There might have been one or two that I just totally missed. I had never seen a single booster sell. However, we did have two different customers who would battle each other because they would come in and buy them all.
Yep.
They would buy the full bricks to the point where my boss, Dennis, right? Love this guy. He's a funny man. But he actually stopped opening the boxes, right? Because he knew that the packs wouldn't sell. But one of these two guys would come in, they'd buy all the boxes. The next day, the next guy would come in, and there was random, whichever one showed up first, and then he'd get really angry on the spot, like, I can't remember. It's like Robert and someone else. I can't remember their names now. Robert and Alan or something. And like he'd go, Robert came in again, didn't he? Yeah, he bought it all. Let me know next time it comes in. Yeah, we're not going to do that, man. Just come in when it you know it comes in once every 2 weeks. Just come in on the day. It's like Thursdays, man. He's like, but I work Thursdays. Anyway, look, the point is we always sold. Like, I think Star Wars Destiny was great for those who just like hyper fixated on it.
Yeah, it was a good game. It was a pretty solid game. But Star Wars Destiny, I think we got the second set in. The third set had product allocations, and they pulled it back a touch. And then there was a 3-month delay getting stuff in, which meant no organized play. Boom, gone. And that was it. And that ended in 2000. It released in 2016, I think. And the game itself lasted with Fantasy Flight till 2020, officially cancelled it. But it essentially lasted 2018 in Australia.
Yeah, 2016 tracks for the timeline.
Yeah, 2016 to 2018 was when it survived in Australia. So, product availability is very important. Flesh and Blood almost died because of product availability in the first days. And admittedly, the best thing for Flesh and Blood was the pandemic, because that gave them time to create the collectability side of things, because obviously we had that massive investment mania over the COVID pandemic that included collectible trading cards, collectible shoes, items, the wonderful great world of crypto and NFTs.
Legend Story Studios knew, like, Plandemic.
They planned. Holy shit. Yeah, and then we got MetaZoo.
We don't talk about MetaZoo, all right?
No one talks about MetaZoo.
They don't even do the crypto anymore. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, product availability was very important to organized play and the continued selling, because when you have a collectible game, it sells better when people can play it, and when stores run organized play for it, that's when they can sell the product and actually earn money off that investment of getting people into the game. Now, product availability, shot. Lorcana, obviously, completely shot on product availability. I'm going to call it and say that it's pretty much dead here in Australia and New Zealand. The only thing that may give it life support is the fact that it is Disney. But, when we're looking at set 4 and we have that same problem of the break in availability, which was my second thing, organized play will never catch up. That's my second reason why I think it's dead. The only way you do this is you do a Pokemon style system where only cards released in that market are legal for tournament play.
Yeah.
The problem is that fractures the entire organized tournament play.
Well,
because you've got the same cards that come out for Pokemon in the 2 separate sets in Japan then get re-released in a collated set in English. We get the questions. Can I play, we had the questions for ages. Can I play Pokemon 151 in my standard deck? And the answer is no, because Pokemon 151 didn't come out until, mid-September here. But we had people asking about it in August because it was already out in Japan.
Correct.
And they had got their hand on Japanese cards. So that's going to make a fracture in the organized play, in the competitive organized play circuit. Yeah, that will be very hard to track.
And you're absolutely right in the sense that, I talked about Yu-Gi-Oh! For a quick second before, but when it comes to the World Championship for Yu-Gi-Oh!, because you got players playing TCG and then players playing OCG, which even have different ban lists, they're different games, right? Because obviously cards come out different ways. It's a bit more convoluted because there are a couple of different rules here and there, tiny details of rules that change, like rulings. But when it gets to the World Championship, right, they collate the ban list together. That's how they do the World. So World is known as the Funzo Wacky format where, for a good example, there was a year, I don't remember the year it was, might have been 2017, don't call me on that one, where Blue Eyes White Dragon as a deck archetype, the Blue Eyes archetype, won the World Series. There was an year when the Satellanites won a World Series against all the other odds. And that was because the best deck in the Satellanite format, the Necros, right? They had one side of the bans existed in Japan, the other side of the bans existed elsewhere, and then we put them together. Every card in that deck was essentially banned, and people had spent a year plus practicing the format
that deck,
with that deck, and everyone went, "Oh, what are you going to do?" And then some guy comes in with a Satellarknight deck, and he's like, "Yeah, all my cards are legal. Anyway, you lose." And it's like, wow. And that's what happened with Blue Eyes, where it was like it had some good matchups, and then every card was legal in the deck, and everyone went, "Yeah, we'll just play the deck where like we can play all the cards, and it's good because we can play all the cards, and not even because it's really that powerful." And it comes back to that, isn't it? We can play all the cards. The game doesn't work if you can't play all the cards.
Yeah.
And that if you break it up like that, you can't play all the cards. And then there's also other options that are even worse, where it's like, they could do things like Vanguard, where it's like you could only not Vanguard, sorry, Force of Will, where it's like you can only play these sets against each other in this block. So you could play this block.
You're essentially playing block constructed.
But you're playing block constructed, and it's like, oh, block constructed,
yuck.
awesome.
There's a reason why Magic doesn't do it.
Yeah.
Even when Magic had that as an available format, no one played it.
No one played block constructed. No one cares. So yeah, I think that's like another point as well. So
there's only one way to play block, and that is block limited.
Yes. So it's distribution.
Distribution. The gameplay is fractured, and the third one is it's a licensed product. I know. Look, let's be real here. This game, even if they make it through those two major hurdles that they have, particularly in our region, but whatever our region is, it doesn't matter.
Like the Dumbo in the room.
Yeah, the Dumbo in the room there is that it is a licensed product. This game will last precisely as long as it takes for Disney to go to up their royalty payments to a level that makes the game unsustainable for Ravensburger.
And if we add the royalty payments and interest that they're paying to Upper Deck,
if Upper Deck wins that lawsuit as well,
all of a sudden,
like where does that profitability line meet?
And it's shorter.
It's much shorter.
It's much shorter.
So yeah, that's the big thing. This isn't a game run by like Disney. This is a game run by Ravensburger for Disney. This is a license that the Disney shareholders one day can go, you know what? I think I feel like having 4.5% of that pie rather than 3%. And then that may be the number. That may be the number that goes, well, we can't do this anymore, right?
If a company's going to do it, Disney is.
Yeah, let's get real here.
That's why these Star Wars games, as they kind of got later in life, as Disney bought out Star Wars and things started to change.
We can go on about Star Wars Unlimited. I would bring up, you know what? We were going to talk about Star Wars Unlimited after this. But Lorcana, I'm sorry, I don't see it surviving. Am I going to stock it? If I get a chance, yeah, sure, we'll see how it goes.
We'll give it every shot it can have, right?
We'll give it every shot it can.
We support every game that we get. We support all these stuff. We really... Okay, another point, right? We want to see it thrive.
Yeah, I want to see it thrive. But we're not
talking about what we want here.
At the end, like the gameplay's fun. It's cool. Its resource system's really cool. There are other games that do that same resource system. And they're not just Rush of Icor. But
yeah, can we bring back Duel Masters, please?
Yeah. But the gameplay's fun, but it also, you got to think about it. It's a card game that's essentially designed for children as well. So it does have that gameplay element of essentially it's Pokemon, in the sense of you read the cards, you do the cards, and you just kind of play the game. And I want to see it work. I think it's good to have a decent competitor to Magic the Gathering, because I think Magic is a card game that needs someone to knock on its door. Is Lorcana going to be the one? Probably not.
I don't know. I feel like I agree that in the kind of environment that we're in and in the society that we live in, I agree that innovation and competitive design is really healthy for it. In the argument of early stages, right? But in the late stage that we're at with the game of Magic, I don't even necessarily personally agree that things need to tap on Magic's door. I think there is a level where we talk about inflation, we talk about the price of stuff, we talk about the price of Magic cards going up, right? I don't necessarily think competition is actually going to fix any of that. I don't think competition is going to actually change these things. So I think maybe there's a whole discussion around that. But I personally think that we've reached a point now where it's a bit infallible.
Yeah.
And I think that trying to break this mega idea is almost what is hampering these games. Does that kind of make sense to you?
Well, I don't look, I don't think that Magic's out of the realm of. I don't think Magic's out of the realm of having its door knocked on.
I just feel like
I understand. It is a behemoth. Don't get me wrong. I understand with Hasbro at its back, it is massive.
But I
right?
think there have been, okay, what I'm trying to say as well is not simply that it doesn't exist in a vacuum. I think that you are also, when we talk about Magic, we talk about the fact that it's not Magic, it's the big three, Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon, and then there are games below that. And I think that the fact that there is Pokemon, which is as big as, if not arguably bigger as a brand, definitely, but overall
Definitely
possibly
brand, yeah.
bigger than Magic the Gathering, worldwide at least. And then Yu-Gi-Oh, which is definitely quite a large game. It's not a joke whatsoever, and it's a huge game. I think that they're constantly like crabs in a bucket, holding onto Magic the Gathering and pulling it down. And I don't think that these games rising up through these ranks, like let's just use that analogy here, rising up through this almost multi-level marketing pyramid scheme thing we got going on. I don't think that's going to be weighing it down, because I feel like you've got to weigh down games like Yu-Gi-Oh and Pokemon first. And if we talk about Lorcana comparing with Pokemon...
Yeah, it's more likely that Lorcana's going to weigh down Pokemon.
Right? But
hell, you know what? If Lorcana weighs down Pokemon enough for them to fix their shitty OP system,
look,
I'm happy for that.
We're not getting into the OP system of Pokemon, right? That's behind the silver curtain for sure, okay? But Pokemon sucks for that, but that's not the point. Okay, I actually disagree that Lorcana could hold down Pokemon. I totally disagree that Lorcana... I know, it's Disney.
You know what?
You think it would.
You know what?
I actually don't think so. I think Lorcana is at the Yu-Gi-Oh, but I do not at all think it could hold down Pokemon. I think if that's true, it's out of the realm of Magic.
I will agree with that only while it exists as a licensed product. In the same vein that Pokemon no longer exists as a licensed product, if Disney, actually decided to invest in the game and pull it in-house and, use their weight in that in the IP sphere to help with production and logistics, I do think that it'll knock on the door of Pokemon.
Okay. And I think I can agree with that, only because I'm not currently considering the idea of it coming in-house.
Yeah. But yeah, I think, like I said, if it's not in-house, it's a licensed product. It'll last as long as Disney
wants it to. But and at the same time, I want to say that and at the current rate it's going, I don't see that happening. At the current rate the Lorcana is going, in the way there's distribution, the way that's and most importantly, what does Disney care about the most? The optics, the money, obviously the money. Sorry, but the optics. Like, what does Disney care about with its IP? What it looks like. That's what it's like. Disney World. What does it look like? That's what it's all about. That's where the money really comes from. That's why we talked about Connor landed on a great point earlier, where it's like it just sells to parents buying stuff for their kids or their grandkids or their niece and nephews, or even just people like, I want cool tokens for my deck, so I'm gonna get like Winnie the Pooh tokens for my Tutu Bears deck, right? My Ayula deck. Like, there's just ways of these cards from their visual identity alone to sell, right? And I think that's enough for the game to work, and not enough for the game to hit Pokemon. So if Disney decides, if this starts to really push forward, things start to change, things start to look good for Lorcana, and Disney pulls it in-house, then yes, we have a real contender on our hands. As in, date this video, because I could be proven totally wrong. I just don't see that happening.
Yeah.
But it looks cool.
Lorcana
looks cool.
Yep, looks cool. Plays cool.
Look, we like it. It's cool. Okay?
It's cool.
Mickey, this one's for you. Disney's cool. Okay, I'm a Disney adult. I'll say it. On my Spotify playlist, I unironically have like Moana, Hercules, and I will just sing those. I love Disney.
You know what I love about Disney is that there is a cursed recording of Lin-Manuel Miranda singing all the parts to Encanto.
That sounds amazing. That doesn't sound cursed. Can you not sing? Is that what it is?
No. It's when I say every part, I mean every part.
Oh yeah, of course, right. I mean, I kind of that's cursed. Anyway, you know what else I really love? You guys at home.
Yes.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for joining us. Don't forget to click like on the video, subscribe to the channel, get the bell on to get notified every time a new video goes live here on From the Vault. Let us know in the comments, what do you want to see out of Lorcana? Like what Disney characters do you want to see get their own cards? What rarity would it be?
If you're
Mythic Steamboat Willie, let's go.
Sauron Roxas.
Yeah. Anyway, so
hang on, wasn't Gargoyles Disney?
Yeah. Yeah, Gargoyles.
Gargoyle synergy. Let's go.
Was Meet the Robinsons Disney? Yeah, cool. Meet the Robinsons is my answer. If you are someone who listens to us and you're not Australian and you are situated in one of the companies that are accessing Lorcana, how has your experience been? You let us know in the comments.
That's one big thing I want to know is how is your OP at stores?
Yeah, I'd like to know what your experience has been. You may have been listening to us talk and go like, what? What are they talking about? So I'm always in the comment section. I'd love to hear from you guys. So if you're listening to us and you're not from Australia, you know what? If you are, I don't know, go ahead. But if you're not and you have the product, some people in Australia have the products. I don't know.
If you are in Australia, let us know how your OP for Lorcana is going in the comments as well.
Know. If you're from like the Wicked Goblin in Cairns, let us know why you want to play Lorcana.
But yeah, that's really it. Thanks so much for joining us. Thank you, Connor, for being behind the scenes for us for another episode.
Thank you, Connor.
No problemo.
And thank you, Trent.
Thank you, Dylan.
I love these discussions. We should
They're
do
great.
them more.
We should do them more.
All right. Stay safe, everyone.
Goodbye,
Wash your
everyone.
goddamn hands. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Well, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.